everyone. Welcome back to the How to Podcast series. I've got a very familiar voice that's going to come through your speakers in a moment here. He's come on to the podcast. DJSkoob is here, and this is going to be fun. We're going to be talking about podcasting. We're going to talk about your starting point, the starting line of your podcast, and DJSkoob is here to give us some insights. But before DJSkoob shows up, his buddy is here, and I'd like his buddy to introduce DJSkoob. Could you introduce DJSkoob for us, mystery guest, please?
Yeah. Where's DJSkoob? Bravo, Rebay.
There you go. See, now if that doesn't make you happy, I don't know what does.
Yeah, I'm getting a good smile on your face at the very beginning here. That's what you got to do.
That's how you start a podcast.
That's right.
DJSkoob, welcome to the How to Podcast series. Nice to have you on.
Thank you, Dave. I really appreciate you being here. It's a fantastic. I love this. This is great. This is what it's all about for me.
Building community, connecting with other amazing podcasters, shining a light on what people are doing in the podcast space, and helping new listeners and new podcasters who are here today who are stuck, or they're afraid, or they don't even have their shoes on and the race has already started. And they're like, oh my gosh, I got to tie these shoes, get to the starting line. We're here to help you with all that. So DJSkoob, talk a little bit about your podcast journey, your show. Let's start with that so we kind of have a point of reference as we chat today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So my podcast, The Undiscovered Entrepreneur, started as a failure. And it's really interesting to talk about it this way because a lot of people don't understand failure is something that can actually start something else as long as you use it to learn from. So I'm going to talk to you about my failure first, and then I'll tell you how I ended up podcasting. So when I first started wanting to be an entrepreneur, I've been wanting to be an entrepreneur all my life. But when I had the idea, the finally gut feeling like I need to do this, I wanted to be a karaoke DJ and a music DJ. That's the DJSkoob. I kind of kept that. But I had no equipment. I had no money. I had absolutely nothing going on with me. So I decided, okay, I'm going to start a GoFundMe page, and everybody's just going to give me money. That didn't happen.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think my mom gave me a couple $100 in a couple months, and that was just to make me feel better, you know? So after that epic fail, instead of just throwing my hands up in the air and saying, okay, this wasn't meant to be, I'm just not going to do this. Instead, what I did was, why didn't this work? Why couldn't I make this work? So I dug deep into how to do a GoFundMe page or how to do crowdfunding and that kind of thing. And the one thing that kept coming up over and over again for me in all my research was, if you start a podcast, people will understand who you are and what you're about and follow you and be more apt to understand, okay, he's doing this, let's help him out. So I was like, okay. So I started diving into how to do a podcast. Well, after about a year of doing solid research, I started a podcast, and I love the podcasting so much. I put the karaoke thing aside. Let's put that aside just for a little bit and start concentrating on the podcasting thing. Thus, the Undiscovered Entrepreneur was born. And I've been podcasting now, believe it or not, on November 12th is going to be my second year of podcasting. So happy podiversary to me. Yay.
Yay. Nice. That's amazing.
But I use that story basically to make people understand that when you get started, it's not easy. It's not going to start right away. It could even start as a failure, just like mine. But that failure will always lead into something a little bit different that you'll pivot into that could be the one thing that's within your zone of genius, that's in that one thing that can actually make a big difference, not just in your life, but in like everybody else's life too.
Okay. And I guess one of the key elements to crowdfunding is to have a crowd.
Yeah, well, that's at that time I didn't think about that. So
yeah, right.
Crowd? What do I need a crowd for? I just put it out
what's
there.
A crowd?
But
yeah. I'm spinning my music and nobody's dancing. Oh, I forgot to invite anybody. Right, so we have to bring them in, right? We have to do that connection, build community, and then we can build from there. I love the idea of how your podcast started.
Yeah, and I'm glad it did, because it really taught me a lot of things. It actually changed me as a person. It got me to communicate better. My communication skills got a lot better. My understanding of how to support people and what they're doing improved. I feel like just everything about me, personal wise, everything about me just improved because I started the podcast, learning to talk to other people, even strange people I've never met before. made a really big difference in how I treat people in my outside world here.
Yeah, you don't anticipate that when you start a show, that you're going to be better. For my wife, she loves it because I'm a better listener. I don't talk over her when she talks. Because in podcasting land, if I sit here and talk over you, it's going to be a nightmare to edit. And it's going to sound terrible to a listener to have multiple voices going on. You're like, would somebody please stop talking? So I'm quieter now when my wife is talking, and she's like, this is great. So I'm learning some stuff too, just by being a podcaster.
Yeah, absolutely. Your communication skills do definitely improve because you give everybody else a chance to talk and listen to what you have to say. And then you can actually respond the correct way because you've listened to everything that they had to say. I mean, if you only listen to half of what they have to say, you're not going to get the right information to be able to say what you need to say to either support them or empathize or agree with them or even disagree with them.
You holding a space for someone. And I think in our world, and Jennifer, we get really philosophical for a second. In our world, we need this. We need to hold space for people and to maybe be quiet more and listen more. I think it could have a big impact in general terms for all of us. So podcasting can change the world if you let it. So
that's it. Everybody just become a podcaster. It'd be a lot easier.
There you go. We're done.
Okay.
We're done here.
Our thing.
We're done here. So the race has started. The gun's gone off. And there's people standing around in bewilderment going, what is a podcast and how do I do this? And they're here listening to our episode today. What are you going to say to somebody who walks up to you and goes, DJ Skoob, what is a podcast and how do I do this? Like, where do I even start? What would you tell them?
So the first thing you want to do is figure out how to record. That nothing's going to happen unless you figure out how to record something. Even if you don't have a microphone or just a laptop, really. I mean, there's other apps you can go to you could just record on your phone. As long as you record something where you get used to the idea of, okay, people are going to hear my voice. This is what I'm going to have to say to them. And then listen back to it and understand that this is exactly how it's going to work. My very first time recording, I actually interviewed my son about his job. He works at a pizzeria. So I was like, well, how was your day today, son? And we kind of went back and forth. So I kind of understood how it actually all works. Experiment with it because it's the start of something. If you don't experiment with it, you're not going to get any further because you're not doing anything. Make that snowflake. This is kind of the thinking I have. When you're just getting started, you make snowflakes, right? Little dinky things that you learn from. And if you have enough snowflakes, you make a snowball. That's the next step. You make a snowball. It's nice, tight, compact. But get enough of those snowballs together, you either start throwing them at each other or you make a snowman, right? So I kind of think about it that way. These little steps that you take, learning how to record, learning where to put the MP3, little steps that we take is what really makes it happen because you learn as you go along. There's failures that you have. There's oh, this didn't go here. Oh, this doesn't sound good. You just learn it. Now, you could take a shortcut if you wanted to and have somebody help you. You could do what I did too, is just go to YouTube University. That's what I did.
Yeah.
And just watch other people to say, this is how you do this. You know, you can talk to somebody like me. I can help you.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
And I think that's how you would get started. It's just doing that one thing to get you going.
I was talking to another podcaster today, recording another episode, and the topic came up just about how much time he had put into preparing to be a podcaster. He took courses, he read books, he listened to podcasts, he did all kinds of things to learn about podcasting, but never ever hit record. Just kept learning and learning and learning. Like he was becoming an expert and he's never done it. So I said to him, and it kind of came on our conversation. I said, it's kind of like a bungee jumper. You never become a bungee jumper until you jump. It's impossible. You're not a bungee jumper if you've never jumped. You may be an expert in bungee jumping. You may have read lots of books, but until you've jumped, you're not a bungee jumper.
Yep.
Because you haven't done the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So as a podcaster, you can be an expert in podcasting. And I listen to gurus, I have been, who don't even have a podcast, which I find quite ironic that they teach podcasting, yet they've never, been a podcaster. They guest on shows and talk about it, but when they ask them what their podcast is, they don't have one. And I'm like, wait a minute. So we have all these experts who know everything about everything, but they don't do the thing. So the best way to learn how to podcast is to record your voice, as scratchy as you think it is, as unprepared as you think you are. Start. Like you gotta take the leap and then get better from there. I have an author podcast, and an author told me you can't edit a blank piece of paper. And I'm like, yes, that's it, right? You can't edit anything that's not been started. So start and then get better. That's the way it goes, right?
Yes. Don't get paralysis by analysis. Don't sit there and try to I understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, you can learn all this stuff, but it's not going to make a lick of difference until you actually sit down and hit that record button and actually do the thing that you've been learning. I'm the type of guy who I like being thrown to the dogs. Just throw me out there. I'll learn as I go. That's just my personality. That's how I did it. But at the same time, somebody that wants it to be perfect it's never going to be perfect. No matter how hard you try, it's never going to be perfect when you first get started. One of my favorite podcasters, John Lee Dumas, said you have to be a disaster before you're a master. So that's something I always think of when I started my YouTube channel to go with my podcast. Disaster. It was horrible. I cringe every time I look at my very first couple videos. And it's like, what was I thinking? Now that I've actually learned how to do it, how to edit correctly, throw B-roll in there a little bit, and it's starting to look a little bit better. I still have don't get me wrong. I know I still have a long way to go on it. But I could feel myself learning. I could feel myself making it better. I could feel myself progressing. And I feel like learning it that way, it's going to stick with me a lot longer than if I read it on a piece of paper.
Yeah, because you have forward momentum. You're moving forward. You're getting better. And the whole idea about perfection, we as people aren't perfect. So how can we expect our first episode of our podcast to be perfect? So you're going to get better as a human. You're going to be different a year from now than you are today. So your podcast is going to grow with you. And your community will love to see the progress, to see you kind of move down the path and become better at what you're doing. They're going to love it because they were on the journey with you. And they feel like they're part of your community, which becomes your crowd, which maybe eventually you can crowdfund with, right?
I'm having too much fun doing what I'm doing right now to even think about crowdfunding. But, it's funny because that's why I still have my episode 0 available. If you listen to my episode 0 and then listen to my latest episode, which is, I think I have now 81 episodes altogether. I think I looked at it this morning. Night and day. But I still have a ways to go. I really feel like I still have a lot to learn, but that's what I like. I like learning what I do and adding to the repertoire I have going on. What I don't have next, I'll be doing speaking. Believe it or not, I'm putting together a homemade stage in my room right here, where I'm going to start speaking, doing live speaking, just to see what I could do and to be that disaster again before I'm the master. Start something else.
I love it. Okay, so for a new podcaster listening, we've talked about, just get started. What kind of things do you do differently now than you did originally that maybe didn't serve you as a podcaster? And you're like, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to focus more on this instead. Anything that you've dropped in your journey?
Yes. What I could say is my editing skills have changed tremendously since the beginning. When I first started my editing, it would take me 4.5 hours to do an hour episode in editing.
Yeah.
And the reason it took me so long is because once again, we go back into the same thing. I wanted to sound perfect before I put it out there. I edit out all the all the crackling back noises and things like that. And it took me so long to do all that and make everything sound so good. Now, like when I look back on those particular first episodes, they sound very robotic. They don't sound natural because we're not speaking after doing all that editing. We don't sound natural if we don't have a or ah in there every once in a while. If we don't have a breath sound every once in a while, it just doesn't sound like a normal conversation. So after taking those out and finding the hotkeys, I was able to cut that down to about 2 hours.
Good.
To edit an hour podcast. And so I dropped a lot of the perfection of the whole thing. just to make it sound more natural. And it actually saved me time in the end, even though it's not 100% perfect. It doesn't really have to be. You want it to sound natural. You want a couple of breath sounds. You want a couple of ums and ahs because we're human. We want to sound human. We want to listen to people that sound human, you know? And then I went from cardboard boxes. My first sound stage was cardboard boxes. So I surrounded myself with cardboard boxes so I could insulate the sound. Now I actually have some foam stuff, you know, around me. But it was kind of interesting because there's two whole different types of sounds coming from there. You can almost tell when I got rid of the cardboard boxes and started with the foam because the sound's so different.
I like it. Where you said YouTube University helped teach you some podcasting. What other resources are you drawing from to kind of help guide you to improve as a podcaster?
A lot of what I've learned from virtual mentors, people that I follow and listen to their stories and how they did it, and then not exactly copy what they did, but kind of put my own spin, or I put my own secret sauce in it, is what I said in my last podcast. So people like Pat Flynn, people like John Lee Dumas, people like Amy Porterfield, people that's been in the business for a long time, that have been doing it for a little while, kind of doing what they do, but a little bit differently. And that's how I learned, watching them go through, listening to Pat Flynn from episode 0 up to 720 now, I think he's up to, or something like that. Yeah, I've listened to every single one of his podcasts and learned from him. Every episode he had, I learned something from, and kind of doing it that way. Talking to people like you, asking you questions about, hey, if I have a problem with this, what do you think I should do? Don't be afraid to ask for help. It's not a weakness to ask for help. It's actually a strength because you have the courage to ask somebody, hey, what do you think about this? Or what would you do in this situation? A lot of people think asking questions is weaknesses because I don't know how to do it. But how are you ever going to do it or even know how to do it unless you find somebody that's either done it for you or you find a book that can read it, you could read or anything like that. Finding a way to answer that question was the only way you're going to get to the next level of what you need to do.
Yeah. I love that. Again, we don't know what we don't know. So we only have this moment in time and the knowledge we've gained so far. So the more you can expose yourself to others in the podcast community, the better. How welcome do you feel within the podcast community? Do you feel you have a space within podcasting?
So, what's been the most amazing thing to me is how welcoming the podcast community really, really is. When I first started podcasting, I stuck to myself because in my heart, I felt I'm competition, so nobody's going to want to help me. I mean, who's going to want to help the competition? And that kind of goes back into my car salesman career. I was a 16-year car salesman. That's where I learned most of my sales. But the competition is so fierce as a car salesman. That was embedded in me. So, I'm competition, so nobody's going to want to help me. I'm not going to want to help anybody else. But then I got onto it was Twitter then. It's X now. I'm still trying to figure all that out. But I got there and started following some podcasters, and all of a sudden, I think just about 1,500 of my followers are all podcasters, and all of them are so willing to help each other, ask questions about audio, about technical stuff, about does this sound good? Hey, can you listen to this for me? What do you think about this? Do you have an affiliate with this person? Maybe I can get in on, or something like that. The support for the podcasting community has been huge for me and my business. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to be on your show, David, because you've showed me some support. So, I want to be here to help you out too.
Oh, I appreciate that. And yeah, you're right that the community is so welcoming. What's really interesting is when you get right down to the topic of your podcast, even there, you'd think it'd be competitive. But I've had, on my author podcast, I've had other author podcasts on. And we work together. We share guests. We recommend guests to each other. And it's like some of my friends who don't understand podcasting, they're like, why would you bring on your direct competition? It's like Coke and Pepsi sitting down to talk about how they can work together. They're like, I don't get it. everything is so competitive in life. And here you are working with your direct competition. And it's not. It's like it's a cooperation. It's here to help each other. And they do their podcast, and I can't do their podcast. There's no way I can do their podcast. I can only do my podcast. So even in a crowded environment, the one thing that's unique about my podcast is it's me. And no one else is me. I'm the only me that I know of. So I'm the only one who can do this show. So in that alone, I feel like my podcasts are unique because of who's hosting. So be comfortable in the fact that even if someone else talks about your topic, don't be threatened by that because they can't do your show. They can't do your community. They can't be you. So rejoice in that. No one's going to take your spot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel the same way too. I mean, how many podcasters are going to have, especially entrepreneur podcasters are going to have in their podcast?
Yeah, who's going to do that? Come on.
Yes. Right. But at the same time, and I've told this to a lot of other, I do entrepreneur coaching too, on top of everything else. But I tell that a lot of people, well, the market's so saturated. They say, there's too many people doing it. And I said, but you have one thing that nobody else out there has. And do you know what that is? They think they rack their brains and like, I don't know, what can it be? What I said, you have you. You are the difference between what everybody else has and what you have. And people are going to want to learn from you because you're you. And they're like, oh yeah, obviously, so you really make the difference in anything that you do. It doesn't just have to be podcasting. It can be anything out there. If you want somebody to follow you, they're going to follow you for you. And that's really what it boils down to.
It's great. And so the community is great. Getting started is great. But then there's this other thing that as content creators, as podcasters, that we struggle with is just content and finding content resources, where to get information, how to plan out a calendar for the year of what we want to talk about. And we do those 5 to 10 episodes, and then we run out of things to talk about. And now we're like stuck. And that's where we see people fading away in podcasting, which is sad because they have great potential. Everyone has great potential. But just that getting that more new content on a regular basis is hard to do. And you mentioned before we had record that you have a tool for us to leverage in the wonderful world of AI that maybe we can leverage and get some ideas to help us with our podcast. Can you talk a little bit about what this is and how we're going to use this? Because it's a great idea.
Yeah, AI has been a big help to me. I do use it as I got a siren going off behind me. I use it as a tool. I don't use it as like cut and paste and then throw it onto something. It's a tool for ideas. It's a tool for brainstorming. So if you have an idea, whether it be an entrepreneur venture podcast or anything, this AI tool these AI prompts that I put together has been a tremendous help to a lot of people. So if you go to tuepodcast.net/AI prompt, you will get a PDF of these prompts. And if you put them in a, let's say, I think I have it through a ChatGPT, or you can use, you can pretty much use any of them really.
Okay.
Set those prompts up and just fill in the blank in those prompts. Put those in there, and you will get so much information. You'll get so much information from it. You will get articles. You'll get it's really hard for me to just explain. Just go there for yourself and find out for yourself. Really, is really what you should just go ahead and do. It's hard for me just to explain. Just go do it. tuepodcast.net/AI prompt. And then
beautiful.
Another thing that I want to kind of point out too is it's really important when you do decide on what your podcast is going to be about. It's something that you can talk about forever. It's in a niche that you are interested in. Don't go by what everybody else is doing. Just because there's 100 people doing sports, don't do sports if you're not into sports. You want to do something that's in what I call your zone of genius.
Yeah.
If you could find your zone of genius and understand your zone of genius, it's something that you can talk about all the time. Like if you're talking about something, your friend says, stop talking about that so much, you're in the right place. That's where you want to be.
Right.
So whenever I talk about something like that, I talk about a book called The Big Leap. Now, The Big Leap is a book which will actually show you or talk to you about how to find your zone of genius. Now, also in my episode 25 of the Undiscovered Entrepreneur, I go through the 4 questions of how to find your zone of genius. So if you want like a shortcut of how to find your zone of genius, go to my episode 25. Find out what the zone of genius is about. If you don't know what it is, that will help you, not just in podcasting, but in just about everything that you do in your life. If you know where your zone of genius, you know that's where you want to be.
Nice. So can you give us a behind the scenes on what your zone of genius is then?
Well, I got a couple of them.
Good.
I like actually talking to people. That's all I really live is talking to people, learning from other people, which is why I'm a podcaster. It kind of works out, right? And I really didn't know that's really, I mean, when I was growing up, that's kind of what I liked to do. But that, you know, that was a little kid that was being annoying. But for some reason, I kept growing up and I kept doing it. And I just love to talk to other people and learn from other people and take the good things that I learned from those people and integrate it into myself so I myself can become better. So learning from other people is really within my zone of genius. Being able to talk and help other people. I was always that kid that would open up the door for and help the old lady cross the street. I was an Eagle Scout. So, you know, that was kind of embedded in. So me doing my coaching and helping other people with whatever knowledge that I have in my brain, in my heart, is also within my zone of genius. And then this is probably going to sound weird to any actual podcaster that's listening right now. I love to edit. Which is probably goes against whatever any other podcast thinks. But I love being able to get in there and make something sound great. And it, not just for me, but for anybody else. Sometimes somebody will send me, hey, can you make this sound better? And I'll get in there and I'll make it sound better. And they'll be so thankful for that. So it sounds weird, but I like to edit too. So those are a couple of my areas of zones of geniuses that I like to work with.
I like it. I like it. Okay, so let's leverage your sales experience. One thing I hear from podcasters is they don't want to sound or appear to be salesy, as a bad term, in their podcast, whether they have a book they're promoting through their podcast or they're a guest on their show or whatever, or they're even promoting their own podcast. They're just like, you know, hey, I have a podcast. If you want to listen, great. Website is .com, you know, and it's like, well, no. Are you proud of what you've created? Like, you've put a lot of time and effort into this, but I don't want to sound salesy, but you're proud of it. How do we do podcasting without being overtly salesy and push people away? Help us. You are an expert in both. So give us some tips. What do we do?
Well, being salesy has a lot to do with confidence. I mean, if you kind of like trail off and you're kind of not really, I don't know, I really want to do this. I don't know. But, you know,
Sure.
You really got to, in your heart, know this is what you love to do. And if it's something that you love to do, there's other people that are going to love it too. I mean, they're going to feel that too. Other things like whatever you sell, make sure there's a reason you're selling it. Like, for example, I wouldn't sell a mattress on my entrepreneur podcast unless I'm promoting sleep for entrepreneurs. I don't know. Just if it just doesn't make sense for what you're going to do, don't sell it. Then you will sound salesy. Then you sound like you sold out. You know, so if it kind of fits within what you're actually trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish if it fits in your zone of genius, it's not going to come out too salesy. If it makes sense to you, if it makes sense to your audience, it's not going to be over salesy. And sometimes just being honest about what you're doing is not over salesy. Be honest with your listeners. Hey, I'm doing this. Are you okay with that? Find a way to contact your 2 or 3 of your listeners. Hey, I'm doing this. What do you think? Listen to your audience. They will tell you what they want. They will tell you what's salesy and what's not salesy. If you could find a way to do it, if you put together an email list so you can find out who your audience is, if you have social media posts that people tend to answer pretty frequently on, put something out there. Ask them, and they'll tell you.
It takes years to find and build a customer base. If you have your own business, a little mom and pop shop, it takes years to get people to walk through the door. But it takes seconds of mistreating your customers giving them something they didn't ask for, abusing the relationship that you have, this trust that goes back and forth between a content creator and a listener, you can lose that in a heartbeat if you're very careless with what you're doing with your podcast. So you want to nurture that relationship. You don't want to do anything to harm it. And I've been reading stats recently that podcasters are seen as a trusted voice in the content space now, even more than ever. So your audience that comes to you on a regular basis, they have a certain expectation of you that you've built up over time, that if you go and become something completely different, they're like, wait a minute, what happened to DJSkoob? Like, I come here for this, and now he's giving me something completely different. Like, I don't understand what happened in this relationship that we have, because they've never met you in person, but potentially, but they have this built-in relationship because they're a listener. So we don't want to harm that. So anything that you would say to us about keeping that relationship healthy? Any suggestions?
Keeping contact with your tribe, with your listeners, or however you want to say it. There's a lot of different ways to say it. I call them Skoob Believers. Skoob Believers are my tribe. So I ask my Skoob Believers, what do you think of this? Like I said before, they will tell you, if it's good or it's bad. And if it makes sense, it's got to make sense. It's not going to make sense if I talk about rubber duckies in the middle of an entrepreneur podcast.
No.
Unless I'm selling rubber duckies, but I probably wouldn't do that. So, but just keeping in mind that you have this built up trust. If you do something that you feel is not trustworthy, then more than likely the rest of your tribe is not going to feel as trustworthy either. So, if you come up across something that sounds good, check with your gut. Does this sound good to me? If I was listening to me right now, how would I react to something like this? Yeah. Take the place of your listener. Do you listen to your own podcast, Dave?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you should. I've run into so many podcasts. I don't listen to my own podcast. I'm like, why not? How do you know if what you're saying is actually making sense? I mean, you hear it from here, but when you're hearing it out of your phone or car or whatever you listen to, it's going to sound different because it's coming from a different direction. It's coming a different way. So, put yourself in the place of that listener and listen to yourself and make sure that it makes sense.
Great advice, DJSkoob. I love it.
Thank you.
You think very much. I think you should have a whole line of Scooby snacks. You'd probably get in trouble for that.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know. There's something there. I don't know. It's great. Could you explain a little bit more about your passion for Scooby? Because
sure,
I love Scooby. Come on, more of that, please.
Yeah, this is great. You're gonna love this. Okay, so how I actually came up. This is I've been doing the Scooby-Doo voice for about 25 years now, I think, altogether.
Wow.
I was in a heated conversation with a good friend of mine, and they said something silly, and I laughed, my regular laugh, and they go, "You and that stupid Scooby-Doo laugh, come on!" And I was like, "Wait a minute." Then I went, and then ever since then, it just kind of took off from there. And I've been doing it for a while, and then all of a sudden, just everything Scooby-Doo comes like around me. People are giving me squish balls. I have a picture of Scooby-Doo on it, a can of soup with a Scooby-Doo on it, and then it just became a part of me. So I was like, if I'm going to do this, I want to brand myself with something that's a part of me, a part of my life. So, I kind of kept with it. There was times where I would go out and sing karaoke. Nobody even knew what my real name was because I went by Scooby-Doo. It's
love it. There's a laugh. I hear it again. It again.
I loved going on the loudspeakers and doing my Scooby-Doo laugh. So it's like amplified all over the place. It was great.
I love it. So okay, before we go, branding, DJSkoob, like there you go. It's all about branding. How important is it to brand your show the right way? Any tips?
Make sure it's authentic. Make sure it says you, because and just like that goes all the way around to what we were talking about earlier. It's going to be about you. So you want to brand it with you. Everything that I brand my company with and my podcast with, it has something to do with that happened in my lifetime. And that's how I know nobody's going to be able to copy it, because I lived my own life. Nobody else lived my life. This is my life. So let's brand it with things that happened in my life. So for example, I have my logo up here. If you're watching this, I don't know if there's going to be a YouTube video.
Yeah.
This is Scooby-Doo as a pug, because I can't use the likeness of Scooby-Doo because it was owned by Warner Brothers. So my son's favorite dog was a pug. So my daughter drew Scooby-Doo as a pug. This is actually my daughter drew this for me.
Amazing.
Right? And now, see, he wears this piano tie right here, and I wear a piano tie. So this piano tie, actually, see if I can get it to work here. It actually works. So
he's playing his tie.
Yes,
he's playing his tie. I love this. I love this.
So anyway, so it's the combination of these things that happened in my life is what I use in my branding. My Scooby-Doo laugh, I use as part of my branding. My piano tie. When I was a car salesman, I was a car salesman for 16 years, and that's how I get a lot of my sales experience. But for the last 3 years, I wore this tie, this piano tie. And everybody would come into the dealership and say, I couldn't remember his name, but he had this piano tie on that he played Happy Birthday for my daughter. Yeah, that guy. That's the one I want to deal with. That's why I kind of use that as part of my branding, because it seems to stick in people's mind that I'm the piano tie. My name was Guy in the Piano Tie. That was my car salesman name. So now I'm Scooby-Doo in the piano tie, I guess. I don't know, but DJ Skoob in the piano tie. Okay, anyway, so it's just take small things that's happened in your lifetime, use them as part of your branding, because nobody else is going to copy them.
I love it. That is so good. And I haven't really had many guests on to talk about branding, and I think I don't need to have very many on in the future because that is exactly the best way to approach your branding. It's not something you learned watching a YouTube video. It is your lived experience and who you are as a person. Again, that's what makes you unique, and no one else can copy that. So I can't do the piano tie and pull that off. It's yours. That's your thing. And I think it's amazing. I love it.
Oh, right. You. All right. So, hey, do you want me to teach you to laugh like Scooby-Doo? I could do that real quick for you.
Oh, well, okay. It's going to be interesting. Okay, let's try this.
So, I love doing this. I did this on one other podcast. It was great. Okay. So I want you to repeat after me. Do the same inflections, everything. Look. Re-hee-hee-hee-hee-hee. Just like that.
Re-hee-hee-hee-hee-hee.
Okay, do it again. Re-hee-hee-hee-hee-hee.
Re-hee-hee-hee-hee-hee.
There you go. Now growl like a dog. There you go. Good. Do it again. Now go.
Okay.
Re-hee-hee-hee-hee. Come on, you can do it, Dave.
Okay, all right. I'm getting there. It's good. It's good. Good work on
nice.
That. See? There you go. Everyone at home now going, they're all trying at the gym. They're trying in their car right now.
Now just do that for like about 20 years or so, then you got it. Okay, good.
There you go. That sounds like podcasting right there.
Yes.
Just try it, and then 20 years later, let us know how it's going. Right?
That's great.
I love it. DJ Skoob, again, where can we find you? Tell us again about your podcast. And again, the AI tool, please, the prompts.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Jesse Blount. DJ Skoob is my name. You could find me on the Undiscovered Entrepreneur, where we talk to brand new entrepreneurs that are just getting started in their entrepreneur adventure. We get their struggles, their accomplishments, and their stories. And we all learn from all of that. So we all know that we're not alone in starting our own business. There's other people out there that are going through the same experiences that we are. So we talk about that kind of thing all the time. You could find me at, I'm going to go ahead and give you my link tree because it has pretty much everything in it. That's lanktr.ee/DJ Skoob. That's SKOOB. Make sure you spell it SKOOB because you're going to get somebody completely different if you put C in there. Yeah. And then if you want to get a hold of that AI tool, that's tuepodcast.net/AI prompt, PROMPT.
Okay. Awesome. We'll put all that in the show notes as well, so you can click and link right from there. If you're on the bike at the gym and you're like, I don't have a pen. Everybody got a pen? Yeah, so you can just click the link and you can go right there as well. DJ Skoob, I love it. I think I think that Scooby deserves a Scooby snack after this, but thank you so much for doing this today.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, right, Q. Ruby snack? Yeah. It's been a pleasure, Dave. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Awesome, everyone. Thank you. Listen up to our guests and follow his advice because it's great. Brand yourself the right way. Start your podcast. There's so much good stuff. You got to listen to this episode again. I want you to stop, rewind, go all the way back to the beginning and do it one more time because there's so much good stuff in here from DJ Skoob. A great chat. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Dave. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Bye-bye. Hey, it's Dave jumping on here at the end. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for listening to the How to Podcast series. Putting this out there for you. You're starting a podcast and you're like, Dave, the technology is giving me a headache. This editing thing is, I don't know. It's banana pants. I can't figure it all out. And you're thinking, if there was somebody who could help me with my podcast, I would pay them to do the editing for me. Guess what? I'm actually doing that. I have clients now, past guests who've been on the show on one of my other podcasts, on this podcast. I'm doing some podcast consulting. I'm doing podcast editing. I'm helping with people launching their podcast, getting it, all the technology stuff, getting your podcast in all the players, helping you with your YouTube channel, your website. Oh, it just goes on and on. It goes on and on. And I would love to help you. So instead of going to Fiverr or Upwork, I've been on there. I keep trying to get on for jobs and nobody's paying attention to me. And I need attention. I would rather work with you as a listener of the show. So here's what I'm saying. Go to howtopodcast.ca, leave me a voice message, tell me what you need, and let's work out something that works for you and your budget. And if you need full service or you just need something quick like a drive-through type service, I'm there for you. I got you. And if you like what you hear on any of my 7 podcasts, I can do that for you. I can. And I'd love to work with you because you are amazing. And I'm there to help you, whatever you need. howtopodcast.ca. Reach out, let me know what I can do to help you with your podcast. Thank you for listening. Catch you on the next episode. Take care.